I'll start at the beginning, just where all this began. During the lockdown, my husband had a massive stroke. It happened right after Tiger King and sourdough bread. But before everybody got a dog and had a baby. Remember that little kind of window of time? And the bad news was broken to me by a very junior doctor who was wearing Crocs and socks. The audacity. Do you know why Crocs have holes in them? To let the shame out. She said his condition was life-altering. That's a very bland phrase, isn't it? What does that even mean? I mean, I cancelled Sky Sports. That was life-altering. You're going to need a more muscular phrase to describe my husband's condition. I wish he'd come down the stairs in a pair of Doc Martens, sensible and serious, and said, Miss Bourke, I'm afraid your husband's had a hemorrhagic stroke in the basal ganglia region of the brain. Now, the technical term for such a catastrophic brain injury is fucked. Your husband's absolutely fucked. They're going to allow me one fuck and that's it, okay? So bad they had to take him to the ICU at the John Radcliffe. And I don't know if anyone's ever been to the ICU at the John Radcliffe. And this is not a joke. It overlooks a cemetery. An actual working cemetery. I think it's there to motivate the patients. I used to wonder if there wasn't some sort of magic water slide that went straight from the ICU into the middle of the cemetery just to save time and resources. Now, my husband's consultant was a man called Mr. Cudworth, not his real name, and he's one of the best neurosurgeons in the country. I know this because he reminded me every single day. He looks like what would happen if you 3D printed arrogance and condescension. And he was always surrounded by a gang of medical students. He was like Jesus with his disciples. And whenever he spoke, it was like the Sermon on the Mount. People were just transfixed. Now, when my husband arrived at the ICU, he was in a coma. Now, there's a thing called the Glasgow Coma Scale, because who knows more about comas than Glasgow? And the Glasgow Coma Scale goes from 1 to 15. So if 15 is normal and 1 is Liz Truss, then my husband would have been about a 5, which meant he could open his eyes, respond to some very basic commands, but that's it. He would just stare into space, completely catatonic. But here's the weird thing about being in a coma. Your sense of hearing still works. So week number 1, I'm reading him books, I'm playing him music, but he never responds. Friday afternoon, Mr. Cudworth arrives with his gang of medical students, and he stands at the end of the bed, and he says, Miss Bourke, any questions? And I say, Mr. Cudworth, what's the prognosis? And he looks over my shoulder at every car in the car park and he says, every brain is different. Every brain repairs in a different way. And then he batters the face off me with medical jargon. See, here's the thing. I'm not a stupid woman. I mean, I wouldn't solve the Wordle in 2 goes. I've got a copy of Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. I mean, I never read it, but it is in the house. I'm not stupid, but whenever he spoke, I always felt like I was Charlie Brown when the teacher was talking. I had no idea what was going on, and I was too embarrassed to ask. At week number 2, nothing has changed. I'm reading books, I'm playing music, but he just stares into space. Friday afternoon, Mr. Cudworth arrives with his gang of medical students, and he stands at the end of the bed, and he says, Miss Bourke, any questions? And I say, Mr. Cudworth, what's the prognosis? And he looks over my shoulder at every car in the car park and he says, every brain is different. Every brain repairs in a different way. And as he walks off, I think to myself, I could get a job as a stroke consultant. I could. Because all you have to do is learn off a couple of vague phrases and just repeat them. It's a piece of piss. Week number 3, things have taken a sudden turn for the worst. Someone's written the word encephalitis, on his chart. I make the mistake of looking it up. It's nearly always fatal. They've made an appointment to see him in the little blue room because that's where they give you the very bad news. I look out the window and it's raining really heavily. And over in the graveyard, there's a yellow JCB. Digging one single solitary grave. And it suddenly dawns on me that my husband may not make it out alive. And so just to cheer myself up, I decide to listen to a little bit of Les Dawson, because Les Dawson was a comedy genius and he makes everything better. And for some reason, I decide to listen to one of my husband's favourite jokes.
News about the wife's mother who went to Australia to visit a relative. Apparently she went swimming off the beach, Bondi Beach, and she was attacked by a great white shark. The hospital in Sydney did all they could. They worked in relays throughout the night, but it was too late. The shark died.
It's a great joke. As soon as Les Dawson hit the punchline, my husband began to bang his fingers really loudly against the side of the bed. And I got very excited because I realised 2 things. Number 1, my husband was still in there somewhere. And number 2, he still loved jokes. That afternoon, Mr. Cudworth arrives with a gang of medical students and he stands at the end of the bed and he says, "Miss Bourke, any questions?" And I look at my husband with his broken body laid out in the bed, and I think of the little blue room and the yellow JCB. And I say, "Mr. Cudworth, please, be honest with me. Do you think 9/11 was an inside job?" There's a giggling noise, and I look down at my husband, smiling. And Mr. Cudworth lunges forward and he grabs my husband's hand. He starts shouting, "Simon, Simon, listen to me, listen to me. If you found that joke funny, squeeze my hand." And my husband squeezes his hand really tightly. And then Mr. Cudworth stands up and he says to students, "You know, the ability to process a joke is one of the highest levels of cognitive function because the brain not only has to recognise cognitive dissonance, but respond in a very particular, specific way. This interaction gives me a great deal of hope and optimism for the future." Which I think was his roundabout way of saying, "I'm very funny." No, seriously. I told a joke that was so hilarious. It woke a man out of a coma. Do you have any idea the level of skill? Because that's the only thing that kept me going. I thought one day, this sad, lonely experience will all be jokes. One day I'll be on stage taking the piss out of Mr. Cudworth. And there's nothing he can do about it. And I'm such a petty little bitch. It's the only thing that kept me going. About 6 months ago, I did a podcast, and I told the story of Mr. Cudworth and the ICU. And I accidentally used his real name, which I shouldn't have done. And they swore up and down they'd bleep it, but they didn't. And so within about 24 hours of transmission, I got an email via my website from a Mr. John Cudworth, OBE. And the subject heading was, "Your little skit!" exclamation mark. This was the email. "Dear Miss Bourke, I have always believed that jet fuel cannot melt steel beams. However, intense fire and heat within the crashed 9/11 aircraft would have created liquid aluminium. When this was mixed with water from the sprinkler system, it would have created an exothermic reaction strong enough to cause isotropic collapse. This would have further compromised the structural integrity of the Twin Towers and hastened their implosion. Any questions? And I thought, well played, Mr. Cudworth, well played.